All right, let's get started. Let's do chapter 2. Share my screen here. Good. All right, Business 132, chapter 2. I am Dusair. We're gonna kind of dig into a little bit here, not a little bit, a lot into something called CSR, corporate social responsibility. What is that? We talked a bit about that a little bit in chapter 1, but CSR, corporate social responsibility, it's just essentially it's a concept that has growing importance, and it seems like it's much more in the forefront now with business and kind of the intersection and the responsibility that business has with society, and kind of you if you do good, you do well. So it's a growing importance of the last half century. While business is under more scrutiny than ever, there's definitely, because of that, because the size of corporations and the compensation for C-suite or chief executive level type people, there's demands for businesses to absolutely do better. That's what we're going to talk about here. So in the broader term, CSR, corporate social responsibility, is corporate citizenship. And we'll probably drive home that point a little bit later. But CSR considers a company's actions on society. It's one thing just to make money. Nothing wrong with making money. Nothing wrong with a corporation, generating a lot of money and paying their employees. But there's a bigger responsibility and higher expectations for corporations and companies to do well. Should businesses not be responsive to societal expectations, it could conceivably enter a downward spiral because ultimately, when it comes down to it, the power is with the consumers. The consumers have many choices out there, and if you're going to support a business that is really believes in CSR, corporate social responsibility, versus one that does not. So this is something that's kind of happened over the last, 20, 30 years, but really so much so in the last 10 to 15 years. It's a really booming area in business, and something that we really need to take into consideration and pay attention to. So we have CSR, corporate social responsibility, and we have CSV, creating shared value, or that purpose-driven business. And sometimes purpose is that word. A purpose-driven business or a purpose-driven corporation is kind of thrown out there, but we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means. So business for social responsibility, or BSR, this bit that started a while ago, but in 2021, BSR claimed more than 250 member corporations, such as Abbott Laboratories, Amazon, Coca-Cola, Google, Johnson & Johnson, Target, Michelin, Microsoft, and many others. It's gotten to the point it's so important that there is something called the BSR, the Business for Social Responsibility. This alliance, and their goal is they want to foster social responsible corporate policies. It's not just so much, okay, it sounds good for us to do something, but now we actually have to do something. Do they actually stand by their actions? Are there financial incentives for them in this? Of course there are. Do they get certain write-offs? Of course they do. But the realization has been made that this is such an important part of business in the giving back, and to let consumers in the marketplace know that you believe in kind of doing something for the greater good. Basically, they say we work with business to create a just and sustainable world. The beginnings of CSR, or corporate social responsibility. Adam Smith, this is kind of a very important concept. Adam Smith was kind of like the famed economist, kind of the godfather of the free market economy. He had the concept, hold on, drink water, of the invisible hand. If you don't know what the invisible hand is, that is essentially that the marketplace will determine the winners, the losers, and how business works. For example, if you have a product or service that is way overpriced, consumers are not going to buy it, right? They're going to find alternatives for that, or they're going to go to your competitors. Or if you have a product that is not up to the quality of your competition, it's going to get killed. It's going to get destroyed. That's an invisible hand of things will, as far as business, supply, demand, what consumers will take part in. There's that invisible hand that things will work out the way that they're supposed to, because of the relationship between business and consumers. So society could best determine its needs and wants through the marketplace. Something like an invisible hand, that's, it might be a little bit more of like, hey, keep regulations out of this, let the consumers really essentially figure out what's going to work best. In this view, they said the invisible hand of the market transforms self-interest into societal interest. Societal interest will eventually determine what's going to work in the marketplace. Like imagine you have a lemonade stand. You have two lemonade stands next to each other. One gives horrible service and they charge $1 per thing of lemonade. The one next to it charges 75 cents, but gives great service and has a better product. That's kind of you, the consumers, are kind of the invisible hand. The people providing the lemonade is part of that invisible hand, is that one's going to do something better, more efficiently, and at a better price. They're not forced to. They're not. There's no sanctions on them or regulations. They have to do things a certain way. But if you want to essentially win in business and do better in business, you have to operate your business better. That's essentially what the invisible hand means. And then the consumers will naturally flock to the companies and the corporations that provide a better product, a better service at a better price with overall. But it says the marketplace has done a good job in determining what goods and services should be produced. It has not quite fared as well, ensuring that businesses always act fairly and ethically. How many models do we have here? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 different models we go over here. There's something to consider. There's a legal model, which is society's expectations of business has changed. It used to be something that a company just basically, they provided a service or a good, and that was it. That's all we expected. Just we want to see something on the shelf, or we want to see an option to buy something. But now the bar, they're raising the bar, and many laws have been passed to reflect these concerns and want to do it in a fair way. Then there's the social model that focuses basically on society's expectations. We want beyond what is legally required, and business ethics end up emerging from that. So it's not just what's legally required. There's that social model of companies and businesses basically doing something for the greater good. And then there's a stakeholder model. That's tensions between the interests of the shareholders and the stakeholders. So the shareholders would be the people who literally own shares or have a financial incentive in that company. And the stakeholders could be anybody that's not necessarily people who own shares of the company, but also people who could be customers, people who could be in living in the area where that product is sold, people who live close to the factories, people who live close to the headquarters. Those all could be considered stakeholders. So that tension between the interest of the shareholders of wanting profitability and then the stakeholders. In the stakeholder model, sustainability has become a prominent focus, because you have to think about it's more than just buying something for $1 and selling it for $2. There's more purposeful goals in mind here. The evolving meanings of CSR. We'll get into kind of a lot of these here in this discussion. By the way, the Easter egg is my favorite football team is the Los Angeles Rams. Okay. That's the Easter egg right there for the last question. Another meaning of aside from the impact of the company's actions on society is the social responsibility is the obligation of decision makers to take action that protects and improves the welfare of society as a whole, along with the interests. So there's consistently evolving meanings of the corporate social responsibility. And alternative definition is the corporation has not only economic and legal obligations, but also certain responsibilities to society that extend beyond these obligations, which we've kind of, some of this stuff might be repetitive, but just make sure that you kind of get the point. The 4-part definition of CSR: the economic responsibilities, the legal responsibilities, the ethical responsibilities, and the philanthropic responsibilities. First, the economic responsibilities. At the base level, the foundational level, business has an economic responsibility. You got to make some money, right? That's the purpose of business, is essentially to make money for the company, to make money so you have enough money to pay your employees. The basic objective for business is to produce goods and services that society needs and wants to sell them at a fair price. And that's when people kind of get outraged when you see these goods and services that are being gouged. Like sometimes you see these, you see a lot in healthcare. We can go deep into healthcare if we wanted to. Probably will a little bit later about what contributes to some of these high prices. And the economic responsibility is also foundational because of businesses provide jobs for societal members. So yes, you do have to make some money because you want to, be profitable, because you want to make enough money so that you can pay your employees. So when you pay those employees, they basically go out and they contribute to society, and they contribute, to the greater good. And they're not just keeping all the money for themselves. They're going to the grocery store. They're paying their landlord. They're paying all their house payments. They're going out there getting gas. They're buying a car. All these things do contribute to the greater good. There's legal responsibilities. It's establishing the ground rules, the laws, and the regulations under which businesses are expected to operate. Are you going to operate fairly? Are you not going to take advantage of your workers? Are you not going to just basically pollute the environment? So businesses have a responsibility towards society to comply within the laws and play fairly in comparison to the competition. And dissenters can be heard through the political process, meaning if you don't like what what companies are doing, then you can basically go through the political process and let your voice be heard. Lawsuit hell. What is that? What is lawsuit hell? It's kind of the paralyzing notion that lawsuits can and will ruin businesses. You see it a lot in the medical professions. You see it a lot. I mean, that's why the insurance industries are absolutely booming for workers' comp, to making sure that your business is protected. And so insurance is doing very, very well in today's day and age. Newsweek had a cover story titled "Lawsuit Hell: How Fear of Litigation is Paralyzing Our Profession." And that can be a lot of professions out there where it seems like the lawyers are always winning. So if you're thinking about a profession, the law profession is not a bad profession to get into, because a lawyer will rarely tell you do not have a case. You can sue anything for anybody that you want. It's just a matter of whether you can win the lawsuit. And sometimes you can sue somebody for anything and they'll settle out of court just to make this thing go away. And there's a proliferation of technological innovations. Regulations affecting the digital economy are becoming more urgent topics because of the advancement in technology. We're going in a lot of directions that were never, ever anticipated. Our founding fathers probably never thought we'd have things like social media, like a Facebook and Instagram and TikToks, and some of the stuff in Twitter and what's shared on there, and how that pertains to to free speech. So technology, as we improve technologically to in theory to improve our lives for the betterment of society, there's also going to be going into directions that we never thought that we would go into, and because of that, there's a lot of opportunities for more litigation. The three reasons why the law can be and is inadequate, and in relationship to corporate social responsibility, the law cannot possibly address all the topics or issues that business may face. New issues endlessly emerge. Imagine if you had a business and you had a hot dog stand or something like that, and then all of a sudden you're kind of getting, somebody's turning the screws on you with pricing and what you can and cannot do. But those laws are not essentially made by somebody who is as familiar with that business as you would be, because there's a couple steps away, separated from you and the customers and the profitability and the viability of a business. So the law can't possibly address all the topics or issues the business may face. Number two, the law often lags behind more recent standards of what is considered appropriate practice. That's when sometimes some areas are overly regulated or improperly regulated, or some lawmakers kind of have their head in the sand because they don't know the day-to-day what is important and what is applicable to some businesses. And three, the laws are made by elected officials and often reflect the personal interests and political motivations of legislators rather than the appropriate ethical justification. So they might have different incentives and different goals for passing laws, but not always in favor of the business owner or the consumer. Ethical responsibilities. What is that? Ethical responsibilities, these are always needed, and are needed to embrace those activities, standards, and practices that are expected or prohibited by society, even though they are not codified into law. So there could be some things and ethical responsibilities that aren't part of law, but there is still part of an ethical component to business. Like you think about it, like if you look at like a company, like a big company like Amazon, people criticize Amazon that they're a monopoly. But when you look at Amazon, what is Amazon? Why do you buy something from Amazon? Usually there's about 3 or 4 reasons. One, they have inventory. They have basically have everything, price, speed, right? If you found some place that had more inventory than Amazon, you'd probably go there. If you found a place that could deliver it faster, you'd probably go there. They're a place that that it was more convenient, you would probably go there. So it takes a lot for them to actually to defend all of their core competencies. And also, they're one of the criticisms of Amazon is that, do they not pay their fair share in taxes? They probably don't, but they are literally just playing within the rules that are there. The rules that the government has put in place, they are playing by those rules. It's not their fault that the rules are the way they are. It's like the thing, don't hate the play or hate the game, essentially. So, but also, second point, there's ethical responsibilities embody the full scope of norms, standards, values, and expectations. And sometimes those are not always consistent with how the laws are written. Changes in ethics. Ethics change over time. Over time, changes in public conceptions or ethics or values absolutely can change. If you look at the big changes like in civil rights, in 1920, women weren't able to vote. African Americans, they had the right to vote not until like the 1960s. And gay rights too. You know what? I'm 51 years old, and when I was growing up, the concept of gay rights was like, no, they can't. Not all gays can have rights. But then, over time, our things change, and now for the most part, people are fine with it. There's still going to be some fringe members of society that don't, but it's not even an issue. Look at things like cannabis, like medicinal marijuana. If you would have told me growing up that you would have that the issue of gay rights and legalized marijuana would not even be that big of an issue anymore. Most people would think that you would not see that day, but things change over time. Ethics change over time. There are adjustments made over time. And businesses can be expected to adopt these changes over time. And it's almost essentially some odd businesses you kind of have to, because if you either adapt or die in a lot of businesses. So Whole Foods Market and they have products that are free of GMOs, which is not required by law, but many consumers now expect companies to engage in these type of practices. 15, 20 years ago, the concept of GMOs, like, what is wrong with that? What is that? Is that something just a bunch of tree huggers or a bunch of hippies are into? Now it's a very important point, a very important issue. And Whole Foods has basically kind of created a very unique position for themselves, because this is a very important topic for people. Philanthropic responsibilities. The public has the expectation that business is not just anymore to hate it. A business is around to, like I said, to buy something for $1 and sell it for $2. That business will give back. And thus, this category has become part of the implied social contract between business and society. Chick-fil-A, they have this something called the WinShape Center Foundation, that they work with foster homes, camps, and scholarships. They don't have to do this, but they do. Aflac, they've raised and contributed more than $100 million for childhood cancer. You don't have to do this, but they do. General Mills during COVID, they really stepped up to the plate, no pun intended, and supported something called Feeding America, which putting food in homes. Don't have to, but they do. In Timberland, they have something called their Path of Service program, provides employees up to 40, this is kind of cool, up to 40 hours per year of paid volunteer time to serve in their communities. So you'll get paid as if you're working, but you're actually volunteering. Don't have to do that, but they realize there's a greater good out there that they need to serve than just making $1. And in general, philanthropy is a practical way for companies to demonstrate that it is a good corporate citizen. Here's something very important. This is called the pyramid of the corporate social responsibility. Look at the top. Essentially, let's go start at the bottom. Sorry. There's the economic responsibilities. What does that really mean? That just means be profitable. A company has an obligation to be profitable, the foundation upon which all others rest. If you are a big, thriving company and you're profitable, once again, nothing wrong with making money, then you're more willing, not willing, you have the ability to contribute more back to society. So sometimes people think of profitability as being this evil thing. It's not. If you give back, if you make more, then you can give more, essentially. Then there's the second level up. The next level up is those legal responsibilities, which is basically just obey the law. Don't be a jerk. The law is society's codification of what's right and wrong. Next level up is the ethical responsibilities. Be ethical. It's an obligation to do what is right and fair and avoid harm. So yes, you could have somebody who yeah, they're operating within the law, but then also not be ethical. You know, they're doing what's right and wrong legally, but then business wise or big picture, not acting ethically. So there's kind of a small difference there. And then top is their philanthropic responsibilities. Just be a good corporate citizen. The pyramid of the CSR as a whole. So essentially the total social responsibility of business entails the firm's economic, legal, ethical, and philanthropic responsibilities. So here's a kind of a little equation you got here. Economic responsibilities plus legal responsibilities plus ethical responsibilities plus philanthropic, I think I doubled up something there, plus philanthropic responsibilities equal total corporate social responsibility. I think I put, hold on here. What did I miss? Economic, legal, and philanthropic. Yeah. No, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It should have been economic, legal, ethical. That's right. No, it's right on there. I thought I put something there twice. I didn't. I put economic, legal, ethical, and philanthropic equals a total corporate social responsibility. So basically, make a profit, obey the law, be ethical, and be a good corporate citizen. Practices of socially responsible firms. We can do these three here, just briefly. Social entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, and the mainstream of adopters. What's the social entrepreneurship? These are companies that basically, they have two goals: achieve cultural or community outcomes and earn revenue. And some of these companies, they started with how are we going to be good corporate citizens? Companies like The Body Shop, who gives so much back and is really about, in improving the world, improving the environment. Ben and Jerry's, in all these three of these companies, and Tom's, all three of these companies, in their business model from the very beginning, from $1, there is a give back component of what they do. So it's from the beginning, from day one, from $1, it's about giving back, right? Then you have companies that, they don't have a specific social agenda as part of their initial formation. So it wasn't part of what they started doing and part of their core competencies. But then over time, they developed kind of a social agenda or a program of giving back. Companies today that are examples of that, companies like Timberland, I told you about that. They, give 40 hours, a week to volunteer. Starbucks, they have many, many initiatives that they do. Panera is about giving back and feeding people. Microsoft has many different initiatives, and then Patagonia as well. Patagonia, it's a great company. They're all about giving back and protecting the environment. Actually, they have a whole campaign. Don't buy this jacket, which is tell you every reason why to not buy a jacket, because they'd rather have you just kind of recycle, reuse, replace. It's a really kind of a clever thing to do. And then there's the mainstream adopters, businesses that have adopted practice and achieve some degree of distinction or recognition for socially responsible policies and practices. They're doing something good. Not huge initiatives, but they're trying. It's like Apple, General Electric, Xerox, Aflac, Coca-Cola, Unilever. Actually, Aflac's doing a decent amount. DuPont, AT&T, UPS, General Mills, and Walmart, where it's part of the business models on a much larger scale. There's a lot of stuff on this slide, but these are just kind of the activities, characteristics, or practices of socially responsible companies. Here's all these things they can do. Make safe products. Let's hope so that you make safe products. Don't pollute. Another one that seems kind of a no-brainer. Obey the laws. Yep, let's obey laws. Promote honest or ethical employee behavior. That's good. Commits to safe workplace ethics. Do not use misleading or deceptive advertising. That's a big one. Uphold stated policy banning discrimination. That's an important one. Utilize sustainable packaging. That's a big one. That was not kind of as popular before. Protect the employees against sexual harassment. Your employees have to feel safe when they're working. Recycles within the company. You see that a lot. A lot of these things that we see this now, and you're like, of course, these things are happening. This was not the kind of the commonly accepted methodology of business, not that long ago. Shows no past record of questionable activity, responds quickly to a problem, to customer problems, maintains waste reduction program, which is very important, provides, and the reason that's important is because if you're not doing it and your competitor is doing it, you're not evolving, and your business is probably on the brink of just not being as competitive. Provider pay portion of medical costs. That's huge. Promotes energy conservation program. That's very big, especially on the kind of the real estate development and construction side. Helps displaced workers. That's very important. Gives money towards charitable or educational causes. It's very rare to get into a business or any type of organization. There's not some type of give back at some point. Employs friendly or courteous or responsive personnel. You respond to problems, and then tries continually to improve the quality of the product. Arguments against CSR. We're talking about corporate social responsibility. It's so great. Not everybody's going to buy into it. So here's some arguments against it. Classical economics. One, social problems are not the concern of business. The purpose of business is to have something for $1 and sell it for $2, and then just let that invisible hand essentially just figure the rest of that out. That's kind of an older, antiquated way of thinking. Business is not equipped. Managers, some people think they might be an expert. They might be an expert in finance. They might be an expert in accounting. They might be an expert in human resources. But are they an expert in making big, important social decisions? Possibly not. It dilutes the business purpose. Would this put the business into a field not related to its proper aim? Is it the purpose of a business? This is just the arguments against, to try to solve all the world's problems, or geez, let's just make something in the factory and sell it, and then just wash our hands of it. That's why some more kind of old school people, in quotes, are having some issues with some of this stuff, because they grew up in an era, in an age where it was, hey, we bought a product, we sold a product, we supplied it. That's all we have to do. 4, too much power already. Businesses might already have too much power, and if you basically kind of put another agenda out there of corporate social responsibility, that make them even more powerful. Number 5, global competitiveness. Sorry, I'm going to do some changes in my desk was bothering me. Let's click off the side here. Global competitiveness. Businesses would be weakened globally because of economic pressure. So could a multinational company, be as competitive and function as efficiently as possible if they're which would make them bigger companies with more money and more resources to solve bigger problems, that by making companies focus on areas that were not close to their core competencies would actually kind of dilute their what they did well. Arguments in support. So here's arguments against, arguments in support. There's that enlightened self-interest. Businesses must be responsive to society's expectations and take action now to ensure long-term sustainability. Do it now. If you don't do it, who will? Warding off government regulations. Being socially responsible is the best way to ward off government intervention. So basically, it's kind of staying a step ahead. And just, when you are more involved in business and corporate social responsibility, then you are staying one step ahead of the government. 3, the resources available and let business try, is that there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of expertise. This is kind of counterintuitive to number 2 and number 3 on the previous slide, but one's saying this is not what they do well. Another one's saying, you know what? They're smart. They'll figure it out. Give them a shot. Pretty much as smart people in a room, they can figure it out and solve problems. 4, proaction better than reaction. That's kind of similar to question or point 2. Being proactive is more practical and less costly than simply reacting to the problems, which I agree with that. And then public support. Customers are willing to pay more. This is a very important point. Customers are willing to pay more for more products and services that are provided by companies committed to positive environmental and social impact. I know it's today's generation is a little different, and you'd absolutely pay more for a product if that company stood for something, as opposed to, would you buy something for a bottle of water for $1 from some company and who knows how they're getting it and that they're not recycling, or would you buy something for $1.30 from another company that you knew that they were being responsible and they're being socially responsible? Nowadays, most people would pay, not most people, but enough would pay for the higher price just because it's doing something better. The business case for corporate social responsibility. Michael Porter, he's kind of like the guru of business management. He's from Harvard. He writes a lot of stuff for HBR, Harvard Business Review. And he basically says 2 interesting little quotes here. Today's companies ought to invest in corporate social responsibility as part of their business strategy to become more competitive. He sees this, essentially, this is an opportunity. I don't know if we won't get into this class. It's called SWOT analysis, which stands for your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and threats. Your strengths and weaknesses are basically internal things that you have control over. Your opportunities and threats are the external things that is happening in the marketplace. But he's saying that, you know what, you can be more competitive out there if you invest in corporate social responsibility, which is very interesting. And then he also says the company's social initiatives or its philanthropy can have great impact, not only for the company but for the local society. So it's not just just trying to do the right thing for your company, but locally in your community, you're doing something better. In the business case for CSR by somebody by the name of Simon Zadek, who's also kind of a thought leader in this space, that he says basically the Civil Corporation by Simon Zadek. He had this this book, and he breaks down into 4 main points. 1, the defensive approach. That companies will do what they have to do to avoid pressure to make them incur cost. So businesses naturally will be defensive, and the best way to do that is actually to be offensive. The cost benefit approach. Firms will take part if the benefits are more than the cost, meaning if you're getting more out of these initiatives than they cost, absolutely businesses will do it. 3, the strategic approach is that corporate social responsibility can be part of a deliberate, emergent corporate strategy. It's part of your bigger strategy, your bigger overarching strategy for you. And 4, innovation and the learning approach is active engagement with corporate social responsibility provides new opportunities and understandings of not only where your business is, but where your business is going, and in a larger scale, where society is going, and where there could be some opportunities that would have been blind spots if you didn't pay attention to this kind of stuff. And the business case for corporate social responsibility by should be for the Harvard Business School, probably put out through the Harvard Business Review, their HBR. That corporate social responsibility initiatives improve their company's social standing, creating important solutions to social and environmental problems, and address senior managers' social and environmental missions. So I think overall the theme here is when you do good, you do well, right? When you do good things, then your business is going to do well. And corporate social responsibility drives innovation, trust, and transparency, and it boosts long-term profitability and engages the workforce. Boosts long-term profitability because more adopters will come to your company, and you want to have that enlightened and happy workforce. The 6 business reasons for engaging in corporate responsibility, corporate social responsibility. 1, customer engagement. You want to engage those customers. Those customers want to latch onto a company that is into something much bigger than them. The employee engagement. You want to have those employees that are engaged in something bigger, just like the customers. And that alignment with the customers and the employees, and when you have companies that are aligned with their customers, you're basically not, you're kind of it's a great combination to have. Brand differentiation. How do you make your brand different than your competitors, right? That's one of the big reasons for engaging in corporate social responsibility. Long-term plans, it's very easy to have these in your long-term plans when you basically kind of bake this into the cake once you start doing it. And then cutting costs. This kind of gives you an opportunity to cut cost. And sometimes when you're cutting these costs in the CSR space, those cost cutting measures and implementing CSR initiatives can also result in really good tax incentives too. And then innovation. It keeps you on top of innovation. It keeps you innovating, looking forward thinking. Greenwashing. This is a great topic. You probably heard the term whitewashing. Somebody whitewashes you. They're kind of they're telling you something that's just kind of just not true. Kind of like it's a kind of a friend of gaslighting. But greenwashing, it's attempting to convey an image of responsibility when in fact they, a company, are conducting business as usual, focusing on their profits with superficial attention given to responsible business practices. So these are companies that are telling you they're doing everything. They're doing things from a corporate social responsibility perspective, but they're really not. They're just saying that so that you'll kind of buy into them. Consulting firm. Now, don't get kind of just like everything that we've gone through, and then you see this last point, like, oh my gosh, what's the point? Consulting firm TerraChoice conclude that 95% of the products that are marketed as eco-friendly have committed at least one of the greenwashing sins, ranging from using weak data to support marketing claims to more deliberate deceptions, such as inventing bogus certifications. But if that's not a punch in the stomach, just think at least they're doing something, at least they're trying, and it might not be 100% accurate, but there is a good faith effort there. And the CSV, is this the last slide? No, two more. The creating shared value. This is essentially as business and society could be brought back together again if businesses redefine their basic purpose as creating shared value, that's the CSV, that is generating economic value in a way that also produces value for society by addressing its challenges. Kind of, it's a little slightly repetitive. What we've done here is just keep doing good things, right? This can be accomplished in three ways. One, reconceiving products and markets. Two, redefining productivity in the value chain. And three, building supportive industry clusters at the business locations. Conscious capitalism. John Mackey, the co-founder of Whole Foods, he kind of created this term of conscious capitalism, which I think is kind of taken, it's very popular now. Creating the 4 pillars of conscious capitalism. 1, higher purpose. A business should have a higher purpose. 2, stakeholder orientation. Kind of engage the stakeholders in your company. 3, conscious leadership. That the leadership is doing something consciously. It's not just a just kind of willy-nilly profit motive type of a company, but there's a bigger picture. And then the conscious culture, as it's part of the entire culture for the conscious capitalism. And with that, I think that's it. All right. I'll see you on the next slides.